And they all sit there, Madam Chair, with glazed expressions on their faces. And I tell you what, come the next election, people in these communities will boot you all out. Thank you, Madam Chair. It is indeed a pleasure to serve under you. And I want to just thank the honourable member for Skegness and Boston for securing this debate and making what I think is probably the best speech so far of this Parliament. Yeah. Absolutely fantastic. I know the members opposite harping on about this steel strategy, and I can assure you now that the steel workers will be frightened to death of this strategy coming up, because it's going to cost jobs, and I think that it's going to destroy our steel industry and our communities. I fear this steel strategy. In the 19th century, this great country of ours was the world leader in steel production. Over 40% of the world's steel was made here, right in this country. I don't live a million miles away from Sheffield, 15 minutes up the road, not far away from Scunny. That's not far away. These were great towns, great industrial towns that drove our economy, that provided hundreds of thousands of jobs and jobs in the wider community as well, and built up communities. And it is a shame the Labour Party, the Labour government, seem intent on destroying even more of these communities. Just a few we've got left in this country, they seem intent. Our country, as you know, Madam Chair, was built on coal and steel. Throughout the Midlands and the North, we drove the Industrial Revolution. We used to export steel. We'd export coal. And now what are we doing? We've gone backwards in this country. China's making over 1 billion tonnes of steel a year. We're making about 5.6 million tonnes of steel. China, by the way, are world leaders in renewables, yet they're still opening coal-fired power stations in order to make steel, which they can export all around the world. And we are actually, if you think about it, carbon emission NIMBYs. We're quite happy to import steel and products made from steel from 60 or 70 countries around the world that have been made with blast furnaces, but we're saying we can't do it here. I think that's hypocrisy of the highest level.
Picture this. A politician stands up in Parliament and systematically dismantles everything the government claims to believe about British industry, workers' rights, and environmental responsibility. Want to know the best part? Keir Starmer and his entire front bench sat there in stone-cold silence, absolutely incapable of defending their catastrophic steel policy. What you are about to hear is political devastation on an epic scale. Before we dive into this absolute masterclass in holding government accountable, here is something remarkable. 95% of you watching have not hit that subscribe button. If you value honest coverage exposing political hypocrisy, subscribe to Britain Watchdog right now. It costs nothing, means everything. Right, let us get into this carnage.
And, I've got a lot of friends who work in the steel industry, and they've seen a real downturn at the moment. They're struggling. They're struggling to pay the bills. They're struggling to make their business work. This industry is in a terminal decline, I fear. The collapse of the Port Talbot Steelworks means that now we're the only advanced nation in the world that cannot make our own virgin steel. It's absolutely ridiculous. We've got Russia at war with Ukraine. We're living in uncertain times. We've seen the problems we've had over the past few years in the last Parliament with energy supply, our dependency on foreign states for energy. And now we're doing more of the same with our steel. It's just beyond comprehension. It's absolute madness. We're killing off our steel communities, just like we did the coal mining communities back in the 80s. I know, I was there. I've seen the impact he had. It's still got devastating impact or consequences 30, 40 years later. These communities were killed off. They're still struggling. I live there. I see it day in, day out. Yet we're going to get more of the same from this government. Look at the coal mine in Cumbria. What we want to open, what we should open, to produce metallurgical coal, which will then help in the production of steel, which we could blend and use in blast furnaces in this country. Yet we seem reluctant. This is a coal mine, Madam Chair, that would produce millions of tonnes of metallurgical coal. It will provide 500 to 600 well-paid jobs in an area that needs jobs and more jobs in the wider community. Yet we're quite prepared to import 3 or 4 million tonnes of coal a year into this country rather than produce it, use it in this country and hopefully export some of the coal as well. It's absolutely madness. And we talk, the Honourable Member for Boston and Skegness spoke about the high electricity charges, which will mean high production costs for making steel. Look at Drax Power Station, North Yorkshire. The electricity prices coming from there are astronomical. This is a power station that burns wood. It used to burn coal from a coal mine just a few miles down the road. But we had this great idea in this country to import wood from trees chopped down in North America and stick them onto diesel guzzling cargo ships, send them over the Atlantic, and then set fire to them in a power station in North Yorkshire. It's absolute madness, and this will drive up the price of electricity and subsequently drive up the price of steel production. You know, it is beyond madness. China's getting it right. China's getting it right. They're world leaders in renewables, but they're also making steel from blast furnaces. You know, I think China's right. We should be actually copying China with this so-called steel strategy. They seem to have got it right. Now, I agree with the honourable members for Boston and Skegness, his 5-point plan, but I feel that it will probably fall on deaf ears. The madness will continue. You know, steelworks will continue to close down. We'll continue to lose jobs. We'll continue to destroy communities in our great country, and we'll continue. Do you want to intervene? Okay, sorry, Chair. And again, like I say, I'm going to wind up now because I'm quite angry with the madness of this place that we work in, when there's families out there, there's communities that are relying on us to save their jobs. And they all sit there, Madam Chair, with glazed expressions on their faces. And I tell you what, come the next election, people in these communities will boot you all out. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Lee Anderson stood up in the Commons and delivered a speech that Labour MPs will be having nightmares about for months. He did not hold back. He laid out the brutal reality of what this government is doing to Britain's steel industry, and it is absolutely damning. We are talking about the systematic destruction of industrial communities across the Midlands and North, whilst Starmer's cabinet sits in Westminster pretending everything is fine. Here is the situation. Britain, the nation that literally pioneered modern steel production, that built an empire on industrial might, is now shutting down facilities like Port Talbot Steelworks and importing steel from China. Yes, you heard that correctly. We are closing our own steel plants and buying from countries using far more carbon-intensive production methods. The sheer hypocrisy is breathtaking. Anderson tore into this lunacy with surgical precision. Labour bangs on endlessly about net zero, about environmental responsibility, about leading the world in green technology. Meanwhile, they are actively accelerating policies that offshore our carbon emissions to countries with worse environmental standards. It's not reducing global carbon, it's just moving it somewhere else, whilst destroying British jobs and communities. Genius strategy, that. But wait, it gets worse. Anderson highlighted how Britain's energy policies, like Drax Power Station burning imported wood pellets whilst claiming to be green, have sent electricity costs through the roof. This makes British steel completely uncompetitive. We have deliberately handicapped our own industry through idiotic policy decisions, and now we act surprised when steelworks close and communities crumble. The strategic implications are terrifying. Imagine Britain completely dependent on foreign steel during geopolitical instability. China controls supply chains, international tensions escalate, and we have no domestic capacity to produce the steel essential for infrastructure, defence, manufacturing. Labour's response? Crickets. Absolute silence. Not a single coherent defence of this madness. Labour MPs were squirming in their seats. You could see the discomfort spreading across the benches like a disease. They know Anderson is right. They know their constituents in industrial areas are watching this disaster unfold. They know voters who backed Labour, hoping for genuine support for working communities, are feeling utterly betrayed. Anderson's warning was crystal clear. Ignore these communities at your peril. Elections have consequences. The people in the Midlands and North who watched their industries gutted under previous governments and believed Labour's promises, they are watching, they are taking notes, and they will absolutely hammer Labour MPs at the ballot box if this continues. The internet erupted. Social media flooded with support for Anderson's speech. Former steelworkers sharing their stories. Communities devastated by closures demanding answers. The contrast could not be starker. One politician actually fighting for British industry versus a government actively destroying it whilst spouting empty rhetoric about caring for workers. Starmer's silence speaks volumes. When you cannot defend your own policies, when the facts are so damning that any response would expose the fundamental bankruptcy of your strategy, you shut up and hope people forget. Except people are not forgetting. They are angry, they are organised, and they are coming for Labour MPs who enabled this disaster.